I lent you $50,000 and I want every penny back. Suddenly the phone rang and my sister-in-law made a shocking statement to me. What? I was stunned, but she didn't hesitate to say harsh words. You've been taking advantage of Bob's kindness and lying left and right. I can't believe it. I don't even see you as family anymore. My sister-in-law's voice on the phone was high-pitched. Her furious face flashed into my eyes. Not considered family? It was my sister-in-law who decided to cut ties with me soon after I got married. This treatment is unfair because she never took me seriously from the beginning. You know, I saw you yesterday, dining out at that restaurant. If you're doing so well, why don't you just pay me back already? Huh? If that's the topic, please let me say something. I became increasingly irritated and uncomfortable talking to my sister-in-law. Hold on a sec. I'd rather talk about this face to face. Can we meet up? Yes, that's what I wanted. I've been married for 5 years, but I haven't seen my sister-in-law since our first family gathering. I decided it was time for a direct confrontation. I've always been compelled to spill out all my troubles face to face with my sister-in-law. However, what was lurking behind the unease I felt on that phone call was something far beyond my wildest imagination. I'm Lydia Matthews, 29 years old. Been married for 5 years, and my husband and I are now talking about having kids soon. I work for a beverage company and have continued doing so even after marriage. I met my husband, Bob, when I was 23. During a group date with friends, the moment our eyes met, Bob made an intense move on me. I fell head over heels for you at first sight. Would you go out with me, even just as friends? Well, I don't even know your name yet. Oh, I'm Bob Matthews, 26. I'm in insurance sales. Your long black hair is so beautiful. At first, I thought he was joking and was completely taken aback, but after talking with him, I found him to be incredibly fun and genuine. By the time we were ready to part, we were totally comfortable with each other. The reason we decided to get married after only a year of dating was because I could truly feel how much Bob cherished me and genuinely loved me. However, I would come to find out, 5 years later, that his initial approach was far from pure. Bob's family situation was such that his mother had already passed away, and his sister was taking care of their aging father, who required assistance. Due to this, we kept our marriage introduction brief, and simply by submitting our marriage certificate, we became husband and wife. I was incredibly happy with just that. Except for one thing. It was during our visit to his family's home for the marriage introduction. I am Lydia Johnson, and I will be marrying Bob. I kindly ask for your blessing. Upon seeing me, Bob's sister looked visibly startled. Then she looked me up and down for a moment. Okay. Take care of each other, okay? I'll take care of my father, so don't worry. My sister-in-law's attitude when we first met was one of obvious contempt. I haven't seen her sister-in-law since that day. I'm sorry. My sister doesn't like the fact that Lydia grew up in a single-parent household. She has a prejudice that she must have had a difficult upbringing. Oh, the two families haven't even had a proper meeting yet. Considering my father's condition, I think it would be best not to force a family meeting. Even considering my father-in-law's situation, I couldn't help but feel frustrated. A few days after our introduction, Bob told me something very important, with a slightly hesitant but firm look on his face. Ever since that day, my sis has been going on and on about single-parent households being poor or being too persistent. She just keeps bad-mouthing you. To top it all off, she said she'd cut ties with you if I married you. So, I kinda snapped back at her, saying that's fine by me. Hearing the word cut ties from my sister-in-law was a shock. But I really don't want to deal with someone who dislikes me that much from the first meeting. Moreover, not having to deal with Bob's family and just living the two of us didn't sound bad for young me. When we started living together, we decided to contribute $1,000 each for our living expenses. On top of that, we decided to save in a joint bank account, which would be our shared property. I was earning more than Bob, but it was his idea to contribute equal amounts. But that arrangement fell apart just 3 months in. Got a call from sis today. She said it's been tough since I left home. Did she quit her job? Yeah, she's been looking after Dad full-time. Bob's father suffered a stroke 2 years ago and was bedridden. Apparently they considered putting him in a nursing home, but he stubbornly did not want to leave the house. So, I'm really sorry to ask this, but in addition to the ongoing support, I'm thinking of sending an additional $500 a month to my family. I'll manage the related expenses. So I would like you to pay a little more for our living expenses. $500, huh? It's unavoidable, I guess. If my mom were to fall ill, I'd probably ask the same from you. All right. Starting next month, I'll put in $1,500 and you contribute $500. Let's try that. Thank you. So I decided to contribute a little more to the household finances. Because of Bob's work, he often leaves late when customers call him, and he always gets home late. He frequently went out drinking, sometimes staying out until the early hours of the morning. Still, I think we were a loving couple, often traveling together on weekends. 3 years after we started sending money, Bob's bedridden father passed away. He apparently decided to have a small, private funeral. The wake is tonight, so I might not be able to come back until tomorrow. Okay, then I'll hurry up and get ready. I wasn't able to visit my father-in-law during his illness, so I wanted to at least give him a proper send-off. No, it's okay if you don't come. Remember, my sister said she wanted to cut ties with you, right? I remembered something Bob said to me when we first got married. However, it is common courtesy to attend such an important event. It's okay. If my sister sees you, she'll definitely complain. I don't want her to make a fuss at her father's funeral. I just want him to pass away quietly, with only his close relatives. I had no choice but to follow his words. After all, my husband, the chief mourner, had refused. Instead of attending the funeral, I offered to cover half the funeral expenses. I'm really sorry that I couldn't attend due to my sister's circumstances. Thank you so much. Bob thanked me many times and headed to the venue. I was angry at my sister-in-law for making Bob feel this way, but I thought this would finally cut ties with his family. But about 2 months after Bob's father passed away, Bob told me an incredible story. About Dad's inheritance. Apart from the house, he didn't have any savings. So, I decided to leave the house to my sister since she's been looking after him all this while. That makes sense. I think that's a good idea. But here's the shocking part, turns out, she is pregnant. What? How? Why? When did my sister-in-law have time for that? When did she find the time? My mind was full of questions. Right? I was surprised too. Apparently, my sister had a boyfriend, and he used to come over to their house sometimes. Wow. But, she is only 33. Yes, she found out that she was pregnant a while ago and she thought about terminating the pregnancy. However, around the same time my father died, so she decided to continue with the pregnancy. But there is a problem. Can you believe it? When she told her boyfriend she was pregnant, he got up and left. Well, Bob's father passed away a while ago, and thinking about caring for him and raising children. I can kind of understand how her boyfriend feels overwhelmed by that responsibility. The problem is that my sister doesn't have any money. She quit her job to take care of her father. And now that the father has passed away, the pension is not coming in. I think she might be the reincarnation of someone else or something. She can't even imagine having an abortion. I can imagine I would feel the same way if my mother had just passed away. I felt like I could understand both her boyfriend's feelings and my sister-in-law's feelings. I was speechless. So she's asking if we can continue to support her financially until she secures a place for a daycare center. Of course, but would the amount we gave her be enough? Yeah, there was no cash inheritance. So, I'm thinking of sending her $1,000 for now. I truly feel awful for my sister. Bob apologized sincerely. Despite being estranged, I think about my sister-in-law every payday. We are the only siblings in our family, so I couldn't help but understand my husband's feelings. As a result, I had to cover her living expenses for the next 2 years of her life while Bob continued to support her. After that, our savings continued to dwindle due to her childbirth expenses and baby gifts. My husband occasionally got pictures of her child, but of course, I never received a word of thanks. Even though I wished I'd stop, I couldn't cut the support until she secured daycare for her child. My sister found her job and secured daycare for her child. So the financial aid is scheduled to end next month. Isn't it about time to start thinking about having children? How I had longed to hear those words from my husband. Tears unexpectedly filled my eyes. Finally, we can lead a normal life. Just as I was thinking that, I received that furious phone call. That day was Saturday. I was off and my husband was called to work by a client. Just after lunch, my house phone, which I rarely use, rang. Hello? Hey, Lydia? I've reached my limit, so I'm gonna tell you straight. The $50,000 you borrowed from me, pay it back in full. The call was from my sister-in-law, who suddenly dropped this bomb on me. What? I was taken aback, but my sister-in-law showed no mercy. You've been taking advantage of Bob's kindness and lying all this time. Shame on you. I no longer recognize you as a family. My sister-in-law raised her voice sharply over the phone. I could almost see her expression through her tone. You know, I saw you yesterday. Dining out at a restaurant. With the same intensity as before, she accused me of something that made no sense. Yes, I went out for lunch with my colleagues at work yesterday. Huh? Colleagues? If you can afford that, then pay me back. What? If that's the case, let me tell you something. Though I was getting irritated, I felt something off about this conversation with my sister-in-law. Wait a minute. I want to tell you face to face, but is it okay if I meet you now? Yes, that's exactly what I wanted. We've been married for 5 years now, and since we were first introduced to each other at my in-laws' house, we hadn't seen each other once, so I decided to confront her directly. I had the urge to let her do it and vent all the frustrations I had felt over the years. I had arranged to meet my sister-in-law in 2 hours at a restaurant halfway between our homes. While driving, I suddenly couldn't help but worry about her child. If she were to bring her child along, going in with an aggressive attitude might not be the best approach. While thinking about this, I arrived at the restaurant and found my sister-in-law sitting alone. Hello, it's been a while. You're depressed and stuck at home, aren't you? If you're that good, pay me back the $50,000 you owe me right now. Huh? I'm working fine, otherwise I wouldn't be able to send $1,000 a month to you. Huh? If you want your mysterious $50,000 returned, please return the money we sent over the past 5 years. I blurted out everything I wanted to say on the phone. Don't be silly. I'm the one who's sending you money because you're depressed and can't work. What is this depression you always talk about? The unsettling feeling I had during the phone call with my sister-in-law grew stronger. I voiced out the concern that had been bothering me. By the way, where's your child today? Did you not bring him because you don't like me? Huh? I don't have any kids? What? I thought he got into a daycare and you found a job. After cutting us off, how much more do you plan to rely on us? What? I've been working for the past 2 years. What are you talking about? It became clear that neither of us understood what the other was saying, and we both fell silent. Probably, just like me, my sister-in-law's mind was racing trying to piece everything together. There was only one person at the center of this confusion. Please, just listen to me for a moment. Weren't you the one who wanted to cut ties? I felt dizzy. I heard from Bob. Your mother told him that if he wanted to marry, he'd have to sever ties with his family. She didn't want to give her daughter away just to be burdened with caregiving duties. I was at a loss for words. My sister-in-law continued to tell me about the past 5 years, as recounted by my husband. What my sister-in-law was saying was far removed from reality as I knew it. Shortly after we got married, my mother became ill, so I quit my job and returned to my parents' home to care for her. We didn't have any money, so Bob asked my sister-in-law to give us $300 monthly allowance. We also subsidized hospitalization and surgical expenses as needed. 2 years ago, Bob got into debt, so my sister-in-law took over more than $20,000. And after my mother passed away, I became depressed. My husband's lies were skillfully manipulating the emotions of an eldest daughter, his sister. Even after her estrangement, she wanted to help her brother and helped me. I wanted to attend your mother's funeral and visit you when you weren't feeling well, but Bob said it was impossible because you were depressed. Well, just the other day she saw me eating at a restaurant and thought I was lying about everything. My mother is doing well, and my brother graduated from university and got a job. I've never had depression, and all of the living expenses are covered by the money I earn. I put my hand on my forehead and closed my eyes. It felt like all the hardships of the past came back to me all at once. What happened during those 5 years when I thought I was somehow happy? What side of my husband did I see? I always thought you hated me. I heard that you wanted to disown me as my sister-in-law. What? Now it was my sister-in-law's turn to be shocked. I told her everything Bob had told me the last 5 years. Yes, I quit my job, but my father had a decent pension and savings. He was saving for his funeral, so I've already returned to work. What do you mean by pregnant, by the way? I wrote in detail from the time she found out she was pregnant until her boyfriend abandoned her and she became a single mother. It sounded so ridiculous that we both laughed out loud, wondering how we could be so gullible. You said earlier that you cover all your living expenses yourself, right? Yes, I had to cover the cost while transferring money. My sister-in-law exuded a different anger than when she called. And she said with a solemn expression, "I'll never forgive that guy. Lydia, could you please do some research on this? I can't believe Bob planned this all by himself." Yes. I can't forgive him either. We exchanged contact information and decided to call it quits that day. About a month later, my sister-in-law called me and we met at the same restaurant as before. Terrible news. Shortly before the wedding, Bob reconnected with his ex-girlfriend from high school. Her name is Isabella, and she seems to be working at a nightclub now. My sister-in-law let out a big sigh. I'm sorry, but the first day you came to my house I thought you were Isabella. You look exactly like his high school girlfriend. When I first met Bob, he told me your long black hair is beautiful. I have long straight hair that reaches my waist and am quite tall. People who met me for the first time often commented on my friendly demeanor. Isabella was pretty, but she was really no good. I'm sorry I looked like a jerk just because you looked like her. It turns out that Isabella is a year older than Bob and she attended a different high school. Isabella became pregnant when Bob was 17 years old. His panicked parents scraped together $1,000 for her abortion. All the while, they didn't know it was part of Isabella's plan. At the time, Isabella was dating several men and she claimed was pregnant and defrauded them of abortion costs. The smart thing about Isabella is that she didn't keep all her money to herself. She shared it with her boyfriends and shared her secrets, so her men were even more attracted to her. I felt a chill run down my spine. Here's the story behind my husband's obsession with long black hair. He saw Isabella's high school days through me. It's very creepy. My sister-in-law nodded in silent agreement. Currently, Isabella is working in a nightclub. Although her makeup style has changed, her signature long black hair is still intact. From the past stories told by my sister-in-law, it was clear that Isabella was behind the exploitation of the past 5 years. Just then, my phone rang and I received a new message. Huh? Lydia, my sister's child has become ill. He needs a transplant overseas. I want to do everything I can, so could you lend me $20,000 of your savings? Today. Please be prepared. At this point, the whole situation started to feel like a comedy skit. As we were thinking about what to do next together, my sister-in-law's cell phone rang. Hello, Bob? What should I do? Lydia was deceived by her brother and became a guarantor for a loan. Please! I want you to lend me $30,000 in cash right now. My money alone is not enough. My sister-in-law looked into my eyes and she gave me a wicked smile. Okay, calm down. I'll have it ready by tomorrow, okay? Thank you. Let me know as soon as you're ready. After hanging up, my sister-in-law let out a long sigh. Tomorrow we will put an end to this matter once and for all. The fact that he is now demanding such a large amount of money means they are making the final move. We won't let Isabella do what she wants. I swallowed hard, feeling a shiver run down my spine. It was definitely an anticipation for the upcoming showdown. The next evening we waited for my husband at our usual restaurant. Despite his wishes to meet at his sister's house, we chose this location. I was sitting behind my sister-in-law, wearing a hat to hide my face. Hi. Did you bring the money? First of all, sit down. How is Lydia doing? Even though she's depressed, since when did she become a guarantor? Well, it seems like it happened shortly before her mother died. Lydia seems to be depressed again after this incident. I heard my husband's voice behind my sister-in-law and I was getting irritated. How could he falsely claim that my mother was dead? I couldn't help myself and stood up. Hey, aren't you Bob? I thought you were working today. I pretended it was a chance encounter and moved to their table. Ignoring my wide-eyed husband, my sister-in-law confronted me aggressively. Lydia? Aren't you depressed? If you're fine, pay me back my $50,000. You liar! Were you perhaps trying to swindle another $30,000? What? What are you doing? Your kid's sick, right? I've been sending $1,000 every month, and now you want another $20,000. You're not lying, are you? What kid? I'm the one sending the money. As the two began to bicker, the husband's face turned a deep shade of blue. Hey! What's the deal? We both pressed, closing in on him. It's not what you think. It's, well, Starting to sweat profusely, my husband, seemingly out of excuses, began to apologize. I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. The debt's on me. If I don't sort it out today, I'm gonna be in big trouble. Please! Both of you, help me out. What? Have you been up to no good for the past 5 years? I got hooked on gambling and now I'm drowning in debt. I didn't mean to deceive anyone. Please, help me. Sister-in-law looked down at her desperate brother with a cold gaze. Then she pushed him away a little and said, Enough of that behavior. Are you relying on Isabella? Are you planning on stealing her money and running away with her, whispering sweet nothings to her? What? It was obvious that my husband was surprised. He jumped slightly in shock. Too bad, you've already found out. My sister-in-law said, showing him the report from her private investigator. The strength was gone from my husband's trembling shoulders. Suddenly, his obedient demeanor disappeared and he let out a defiant cry. Oh! Why did you expose me now? Why are you both together? I thought you two broke up. All the patrons of the store were staring at them, but my husband didn't seem to mind. Damn it! I almost succeeded. Keep being fooled until the end. You're both idiots. The tension seemed to subside and he began to vent his anger. Give me some more money. Lydia, you were happy to marry me, weren't you? Please stay by my side until the end for me. My husband continued rambling and started bad-mouthing me and my sister-in-law. Bang! Without thinking, I slammed the table to shut him up. Don't be silly. What are you happy about? Give me back the time I wasted on you. Every time you see my hair, you think of Isabella, don't you? It's disgusting. My husband was scared to see me, who is usually calm, throw a tantrum. You idiot. Do you know what you did? Explain everything. If you don't know, I'm going to the police right now. Thinking he couldn't escape his sister's gaze, my husband finally looked down. After a long silence, he gave up and started talking piece by piece about what had happened so far. Just before our marriage, he reunited with Isabella and together they hatched a plan to extort money from both me and my sister-in-law. After his father passed away and left him an inheritance, he also wanted to get his sister's share. He intended to withdraw both our joint savings and my personal money and run away with Isabella. I loved Isabella since high school. I loved Lydia too, but she was just a stand-in for Isabella. I need Isabella. I despised my husband, but it still hurts when I hear his words. The next moment, my sister-in-law blushed in anger and slapped Bob in the face. Enough with making a fool out of Lydia. After all she's provided for you, you'll repay every cent you owe. Plus, compensation for the wasted 5 years you took from Lydia. With a stern glare fixed on my husband, my sister-in-law got to the point. You haven't touched your inheritance yet, have you? Why, do you ask? That money's for my wedding with Isabella. I can't give that up. With a sly grin, my sister-in-law laid out several photos on the table. Oh, let me share something interesting. Isabella has someone else she's serious about. Looks like she's considering marrying him. The couple in the photos looked happy, walking arm in arm. Isabella, with her long black hair and tall stature, indeed looked a lot like me. Well, even if he's her main guy, isn't he just another target for her scam? Apparently, she's been caught for marriage fraud before. That's a lie. It's got to be. Because once we get the money, she's gonna marry me. That's what I'm saying. It's a marriage scam, don't you get it? It's a lie. I don't believe it. Please tell me it's not true. As my husband's voice rose, he began to tremble uncontrollably. Eventually, he leaned on the sofa and began to cry. This time it seemed like he had run out of energy, so I put the business card of a lawyer. To my surprise, his hands were shaking when he received the card. I demand $100,000 in compensation for wasting 5 years and putting me in debt. I can't pay for that. Lydia, forgive me. Help me. When he begged, his sister also called out to him, as if offering him a helping hand. Don't worry. All I'm asking for is $50,000. I'm not asking for compensation. You know our father only has $50,000 left in his estate. That's why it's gonna be okay. Just sell the family home. I got an estimate, and it's worth about $100,000. So, sell it quickly. If not, I'll sue you for fraud, along with Isabella. Finding out about the inheritance from my father-in-law and that my husband had inherited the family home was completely unexpected. How many times has he lied to me? It sends a chill down my spine to think about what would have happened if my sister-in-law hadn't called. We enlisted the help of a lawyer friend of my sister-in-law's to ensure that the agreed compensation was paid after signing the appropriate documents. After that, Bob's parents' house was sold for the amount my sister-in-law estimated, and I received the compensation as expected. I don't think I could have extracted this much compensation from my husband on my own, so I am truly grateful to my sister-in-law. I soon divorced and moved back closer to my childhood home. Once the money was returned, my sister-in-law moved to a place where she and her mother were familiar. According to my husband, the next day, Isabella, who lost the man she was interested in, dumped him. I dated you for 5 years thinking I would get money from you, but it's all your fault that I even lost the man I wanted. It was a waste of time. Don't show your face again, you god of poverty. She seemed to scream and then disappear immediately. My sister-in-law considered charging Isabella with fraud, but could not find any concrete evidence as Bob was actively cooperating. I couldn't sue Isabella for her compensation, but she didn't get much money from Bob for the time she spent. I feel like I was able to get a little revenge because I was able to intervene in their relationship. Although I may never see my sister-in-law again, I wish her a happy life as her comrade. After all, we have accepted and supported each other as a family. My husband may not have been in debt, but he lost his wife, her only sister, the home he grew up in, and his beloved girlfriend. According to what I heard from a mutual friend of his, he lost motivation and quit his job and is now making a living by working night shifts at a 24-hour convenience store. It is said that when he spotted a tall girl with long black hair, he foolishly followed her and even got into trouble with the police. Seeing the sad end of my husband, even feeling a bit sorry for him, I realize I've genuinely moved on. After my divorce, I cut my long hair and dyed it a bright color. I'm thinking of just doing what I love for a while and pampering myself.